Chapter 44-24. Princess Yunjin seemed to have gone crazy. She rushed in front of Meng Shireen and threw her to the ground. She grabbed her hair and slammed her to the ground, hitting Meng Shireen's face. She was finally pulled away. Meng Shireen was in a sorry state and was taken away by Tang Wenpan. She felt a little guilty about this matter. Tang Wenpan comforted her and said that when he became the emperor, he would release Princess Yunjin. Only then did she feel a little better. Because of this big matter, Tang Wenpan and Meng Shireen were quiet for a while and didn't cause any trouble. Then, there was another movement. Meng Shireen was pregnant. Tang Wenpan was naturally happy and hoped that it was a son. Then, when he became the emperor, he could officially make Meng Shireen the empress. However, he didn't expect it. Princess Yunjin somehow sneaked out and found that Meng Shireen was pregnant. She looked so happy that she wanted to be the empress. She went crazy and pushed Meng Shireen, causing Meng Shireen to have a miscarriage. Because the pregnancy was too long, Meng Shireen's vitality was greatly damaged and it was difficult for her to have children. Tang Wenpan needed a child. Otherwise, how could he inherit the throne? In the next few years, he tried to mention this to Meng Shireen. How could Meng Shireen agree? She cried and made a fuss. Tang Wenpan thought of the empress and the Li family. In the end, he took in a concubine and it was the daughter of one of his followers. He didn't consider the crown princess because her status was high. If she had a child, she would definitely be the empress in the future. He promised to give this concubine the position of a concubine in the future, but the child would be under Meng Shireen's name. Meng Shireen was mad. She caused trouble for this concubine every day, but she still couldn't change Tang Wenpan's mind. She had nothing, only Tang Wenpan. If he touched other women, then what was she? She also felt that her dream of being the empress might not come true. When Meng Shireen was in despair, a mysterious person appeared in the middle of the night and asked her if she wanted to be with Tang Wenpan forever. Meng Shireen was of course willing. The mysterious person said, "I can help you and let you have Tang Wenpan alone." With the help of the mysterious person, Meng Shireen ran away with Tang Wenpan whose leg was broken. That day, the crown princess entered the palace and reported to the emperor that the crown prince and concubine Meng were nowhere to be found. All of their personal belongings had disappeared and even the crown prince's private treasury had been emptied. The emperor was shocked and quickly sent someone to investigate. The person who planned this was the crown princess, and that mysterious person was arranged by her. She was really afraid that if Tang Wenpan and Meng Shireen continued to cause trouble, it would affect her life. He might as well move the two of them out and let them enjoy themselves. However, she didn't know that Tang's people were helping her behind the scenes, so she was able to clean up her mess. Of course, this matter was not investigated thoroughly. Everyone thought that Tang Wenpan ran away with concubine Meng. Most likely, that woman was restless and wanted to monopolize the crown prince. This guess was not wrong. The crown princess arranged for people to send the two of them very far away. It was unknown when they would come back in the future. The emperor felt that the crown princess was very pitiful. At the other party's request, she needed to adopt a child from her maternal family. The emperor agreed and even gave the child the title of Junwang. From then on, the crown prince consort lived a comfortable life of raising children. She had a lot of money and a lot of dowries. Her family dared not force her to do anything. She was so comfortable. Tanghua was also impressed by this wave of operation and thought that this woman was very promising. She and eunuch Wei also made good progress. From admiring the moon outside the window to drinking tea in the room, and then sleeping on the same bed, there seemed to be nothing wrong. When the new emperor ascended the throne, it was already 20 years later. The emperor abdicated and became the retired emperor. At that time, Qinghuan, the daughter of a minister, was a famous general in Baiguang country, the first female general. In a small foreign country, people would be shocked to hear the name of Qinghuan. It could be seen that Qinghuan's fierce reputation was spread out and made people tremble with fear. But people who had seen her all knew that she was born petite. They were shocked by her small body. When she killed the enemy with a long spear, she was not soft-hearted at all. She even killed one person with a spear. Late at night, Wei Sun jumped in from the window and naturally walked to Tang Gua, who was reading at night by the light. He sat aside and put his chin on Tang Gua's shoulder. "Princess, are you waiting for me? Why do you ask when you know?" "Princess, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Today's matter is tricky, so I'm a little late." "Where are the disciples you trained?" "Uncle has already abdicated. You should also rest. Let the disciples go and help the new emperor. I'm taking them with me. I'm afraid they can't help. Let's take them for a while. Next year will be enough." Wei Sun said and took Tang Gua's hand. By the way, Tang Wenpan came back. He limped and wanted to enter the commandery prince's mansion, but he was driven out. No one believed that he was Tang Wenpan. It was said that the princess pitied him and gave him some money. Tang Wenpan held the money and cried in the corner. "I'm not interested in what happened to Tang Wenpan. What about Meng Shirin? I'm not interested either." Wei Sun was a little distressed. "Then I'll find something interesting to tell you tomorrow." "I don't know what you're interested in." "I'll look for it." "I'm more interested in you, the fake father-in-law." Wei Sun didn't know what shame was now. He hugged Tang Gua's waist and rubbed her face. "Then I'll let you play with me." Shameless. The Summit. Chapter 44-25. I didn't expect a few decades to pass by so quickly. It feels so fast. I didn't feel it at first, but when I heard you say that you're leaving here, I understood Margaret's feelings. Empress Dowager Qin sat next to Tang Gua. "No, it should be Empress Dowager Qin." She sighed. "I really wish I could turn back time. Go back to the past and experience it again." This life full of fantasy should have made Empress Dowager Qin have no regrets, but when she thought of parting with Tang Gua, she still felt a little regret in her heart. "Do you want to go back and soak in chicken blood a few more times?" Tang Gua teased. Empress Dowager Qin was speechless, but her expression was calm. "If I could do it again, not to mention a few times, even dozens of times would be fine." "You've been infected by Margaret, right? Let's not talk about that first. We won't have a chance to meet again. You have to play cards with me for a while." Empress Dowager Qin was sad. In the future, the school belle would go to another world and wouldn't be able to meet her again. She was just a mortal. Even if she had all kinds of good things from the group that could prolong her life, she could only live for 150 years at most. One day, she would still have to disappear from this world. In fact, she wasn't greedy for living a long life. To her, living a long life meant loneliness. At that time, the loved ones she cared about would have already passed away, leaving her as an old lady. There didn't seem to be much meaning in living. Therefore, she could accept disappearing from this world after a few decades, but she couldn't bear to be separated from Tang Gua just like that. A few decades was really too short for them. When Tang Gua left, the entire Baiguang country was shocked. They really couldn't understand why Princess Jing Shan left just like that. Why did such a good person have such a short life? Those scholars who admired Tang Gua wrote countless poems and articles about it. Those who were good at painting left countless portraits of Princess Jing Shan with their own memories. The ones who cried the most sorrowfully were the women of Baiguang country. If it weren't for Princess Jing Shan, there would be no possibility for women like them to join the army and become officials. The children of the royal family who had been taught by Tang Gua were also very sad. She was a good teacher in their lives. Everyone knew that the Grand Empress Dowager loved to play cards and would call Princess Jing Shan into the palace for no reason. She would also summon a few women with a noble title to play with her. Since Princess Jing Shan left, the Empress Dowager seemed to have stopped playing cards. Later on, the Empress Dowager became infatuated with the mountains and rivers and would often leave the palace to see different sceneries. She no longer stayed in that small palace. She was actually about the same age as the retired emperor. Coupled with the good things in her hands, both of them had taken care of their bodies and were still alive and kicking. Every time the two met, the retired emperor would sigh, "Mount Jing is such a pity." The Empress Dowager found it difficult to talk about some things and felt regretful in her heart. That unfilial son of yours came back that year and suddenly remembered this matter. The Empress Dowager said, "I even sent people to investigate." After he was taken away by Meng Shirin, the two of them quarreled for 2 years and spent almost all the money they took away. Meng Shirin was tired of such a life. She asked the Meng family for some money, but the Meng family refused to let her in. Later on, Meng Shirin couldn't stand it and ran outside the Great Wall with a man. Later on, that abandoned unfilial son of yours ran back. Unfortunately, no one recognized him. Su Wangfei even arranged for people to drive him away and gave him some money. He hugged the money and cried bitterly in a corner. Presumably, he regretted it. The Peak. Chapter 44-26. If regret is useful, why are there so many regrets in this world? The retired emperor didn't care and smiled. It was good that he didn't recognize him. He didn't want to investigate how Tang Wenpan left that year. What about Meng Shirin? The retired emperor asked. The Empress Dowager said, after Meng Shirin went beyond the Great Wall, she didn't have a good time. She met an acquaintance. That person is called Ming Fan. The retired emperor may not remember him. I have some impression. Is he one of the sons of those aristocratic families who followed the foreign princess? This Ming Fan is the form of the Qing general, right? The retired emperor has a good memory. That's right. This is also thanks to the good things sent by the Empress Dowager. Now my body is much healthier than my son's. The retired emperor looked very happy, and then... Why would a person regret? It's because the pain is on their own body. The Empress Dowager smiled faintly. Naturally, it's mutual hatred and killing. In order to survive, Meng Shirin didn't hesitate to sell her body just to escape beyond the Great Wall and return to the Central Plains. I'm afraid she can't come back. The retired emperor sighed. He hated Meng Shirin very much. She was like a shit stirrer. Wherever she went, there would be a stench. I miss Mount Jing. The retired emperor said, without Mount Jing, I feel that the days are less interesting. Only Mount Jing has all kinds of new things. I think you're just thinking about the good things in Mount Jing. It's all thanks to the retired emperor. The retired emperor laughed. Yes, you see the current Baiguang country. If there was no Mount Jing, would there be today? Mount Jing has a share of the credit of this flourishing age. 1,500 years later, in the history teacher's class. Today, we are going to learn about Princess Mount Jing, a great woman who changed the development of the entire Baiguang country. It is said that she knows the 4 arts, astronomy, and geography. There is nothing that she doesn't know. She is the only woman in our history who is sought after by all the scholars in the world. Then, do you know that behind Princess Mount Jing's glory, there is a bumpy experience? I know. When I was young, I watched a lot of Princess Mount Jing's TV series. When Princess Mount Jing was a few years old, she was lost. Later on, his identity was impersonated, and it was said that because of this impersonator, he ended up in a brothel. It was at that time that Princess Jingshan relied on her own intelligence and wisdom to have a group of elegant guests. It was also because of these elegant guests that her talent was publicized and attracted the pursuit of many scholars. Later on, many brothel girls who shared the same fate became her students. It is said that these students are all incomparably intelligent. They often make those scholars so angry that their livers hurt. They even say that they will come again next time. I know that Princess Jingshan's biological mother, Princess Yunjin, doesn't like her. Instead, she likes that imposter. When I watched the TV series, I thought it was fabricated. After understanding the history, damn, I really want to pull her out and whip her corpse. And that imposter Meng Shireen, I feel like she's a transmigrator. Princes, and young masters of major clans are all following her around like idiots. They don't care about the safety of their clans. Speaking of this, I have to mention the first female general of Baiguan country, Qinghuan. It is said that she was almost chosen to marry the crown prince. Because of a die-hard fan of Meng Shireen, who is the general's cousin, her reputation was almost ruined. Speaking of it, it seems that Princess Mount Jing saved the general. The Summit. Chapter 44-27. Sure enough, my fan Princess Jingshan is the most handsome. I feel that Baiguan country can go to the flourishing age, completely inseparable from her. Meng Shireen seems to have transmigrated, but her Mary Sue halo seems to have been smashed by Princess Jingshan's slap. Sure enough, she is my goddess, so powerful. Why don't you say that Princess Jingshan is the one who transmigrated? That kind of female supporting characters counterattack. I also want to, but the poems and paintings passed down by our Princess Jingshan, how many modern people do you think can reach that kind of cultural heritage? It is said that the adoptive parents of Princess Jingshan, who were picked up, were a couple who were not short of money, talented, and knowledgeable. They often sent their love to mountains and rivers. If there were no accidents, Princess Jingshan's early fate would not be so bumpy. It seems that such a talented person, we modern people really can't compare. It can't be said that it's cultural influence. Alas, my goddess is not a transmigrator, but she got rid of the Mary Sue halo. It's really super powerful. The history teacher smiled and looked at the students discussing. When everyone's voice was low, he said, since everyone knows Princess Jingshan, let's appreciate the beauty of Princess Jingshan first. Because at that time, the scholars admired Princess Jingshan very much. It was really convenient for us, the later generations, to be able to see her true appearance. Later dynasties were very respectful to this great woman, and all her items were well preserved. The history teacher put out the portrait of Princess Jingshan, and the students yelled and shouted, "Goddess, goddess, I love you." Even though they had seen these portraits countless times, they were still amazed every time they saw them. They felt that no matter how good the film and TV series were, no one could play the posture of Princess Jingshan. Because there were too many portraits of Princess Jingshan passed down. There were still various scenes. Many actors who played the Princess of Mount Jing would look at these precious portraits to imitate. Unfortunately, they could only imitate the surface. Even in this modern period, there was a Princess Jingshan Research Society. They specialized in the life of Princess Jingshan, her works, and what she did in each period. At this time, Tanghua had arrived in the latest world. She felt that the aura of this world was a bit unusual, but there was no danger for the time being. She remembered that Empress Dowager Qin was a normal person, so the moment she regained consciousness, she immediately looked at the group. School bell, hello everyone, I've just arrived in the new world, so there's no danger for the time being, so I came in to take a look. Margaret, oh, campus bell, is this the magic world? Campus bell, I roughly scanned the surroundings. It's not a magical world. Margaret, I want to be alone. Don't mind me. I'll be back soon. Tang Guo looked at Empress Dowager Chen's name and was surprised to find that it was still lit up. She should still be alive, right? Tang Guo asked Empress Dowager Chen. Empress Dowager Chen, thank you for your concern. I'm still alive. I should be able to live for a few more decades, thanks to everyone's help. The flow of time was indeed faster, and it might not be able to accompany everyone for long. Margaret, it's a pity that there's no special power in your world. You can't cultivate immortality, nor can you use magic. Empress Dowager Chen, this experience is enough for me. Everyone, don't have any regrets. Whether you are an immortal or a mortal, you have your own destiny. Vertex. Chapter 44-28. Tang Guo talked to the people in the group for a while, then talked to Empress Dowager Chen for a while before leaving the group. She looked around and realized that the room she was staying in was not bad. This should be a modern world, but the layout of this room was different from the modern room she was familiar with. What was the difference? She thought about it carefully. The difference should be that the layout of this room was very cold. Even though many things looked good and were of high quality, it gave people a feeling that it was not very humane. She also found that she was wearing something similar to a wristwatch on her wrist. But her intuition told her that it was not a wristwatch. Her name was on it. Since the surroundings were safe, she should receive the memory first. This world should be called after the apocalypse. What was after the apocalypse? It was the end of the apocalypse. The virus of the zombies was solved, and the human world returned to normal. Everyone who survived could be considered the lucky ones of the heavens. At this time, it had been a few decades since the outbreak of the virus. A new social order was formed, but the world was very different from before the apocalypse. The men who continued to live in this world could be called lucky, but the women were not. The outbreak of the virus was very special. None of the women in the apocalypse had awakened abilities. The ones who had awakened abilities were all men. From then on, the status of women rapidly declined. Other than the strong families who took care of the women, all the women in the world were being harmed. After the apocalypse ended, the number of women rapidly declined. It was too late for the world to react. Until now, all the women seemed to have become protected animals. When they were born, their genes were recorded, all their information was given a number, and they wore a wristwatch. And these wristwatches had to maintain a signal at all times. Once there was no signal, the guards protecting the women would immediately come to find them. On the surface, these seemed to be protecting the women. After all, women were rare and everyone thought that they should be protected. But in fact, women born in this society would live under surveillance from the moment they were born. They had no freedom at all. The apocalypse virus allowed all men to awaken abilities. In addition to the different levels of abilities, this ability also had a certain side effect. That was, when men smelled the scent of women, it was easy for them to become aroused and do some very impulsive things. This was also the reason why the number of women had drastically decreased in just a few decades. It was all because of those men who had awakened special abilities and were unable to control themselves. They wantonly ravaged women as if they had gone mad. However, what could the weak women who had not awakened their superpowers do? Now, they seemed to have realized the severity of the situation and were protecting the women. However, from time to time, some men would suddenly go crazy and bully women. However, this aspect was more complete now. Men who made such a mistake would be severely punished. In serious cases, they might even lose their lives. Seeing this, many people would think that this was a sign of how important women were to him. However, the truth was that this male society believed that the man who had made a mistake had touched the cake and violated the rights of other men. They punished the other party not because of the women, but because they felt that their interests had been violated. Vertex. Chapter 44-29. The females here were considered adults when they reached the age of 16, which meant that they could be assigned partners. What made Tangua disgusted was that the females were like livestock, and all of them had a number in the system. Their life experiences and information from childhood to adulthood were all in the system. This world after Doomsday was very important for breeding offspring. Perhaps because of the Doomsday virus, not all male and female couples could give birth to excellent and healthy offspring. Later, various genetic studies were conducted, and the researchers discovered that the matching of male and female genes was more likely to give birth to excellent children. Therefore, in the matching system, there were not only female genetic codes, but also male genetic codes. When they wanted to be matched, the system would automatically match the most suitable one to give birth to children. If there was a female who was matched with several excellent males, the data obtained showed that she could give birth to excellent offspring. Then, this female would become the wife of these men. Women imagined that they would have countless husbands, but they were not happy here. Because in the eyes of men, they were objects to vent and tools to give birth to children. Women had no right to refuse, they could only obey. During this period, there were countless female movements, wanting to resist all of this. They thought that this kind of behavior was completely against women's human rights. However, how could women without any superpowers resist? They did not have a good ending, and were forced to give birth to children. Therefore, women had no human rights here. The beginning of this story was the arrival of a transmigrator. This transmigrator's name was Pei Cici, and she was the female lead of this world. Pei Cici was a woman with good genes, and she was tested to be able to give birth to very healthy and excellent offspring. When she first appeared, she had to be matched with someone when she reached adulthood. Because her genes were too excellent, she was matched with 5 people at once. These 5 people were the male lead of this world. They were Fu Qiu, Liang Haolin, Tong Jinjun, Fan Jing, and Fan Hai. These 5 were considered very powerful superpowered people after Doomsday, and they all held important positions. Facing Pei Cici, who had a 99% match, none of them were willing to let her go. From the beginning of the conflict, they all had Pei Cici. Pei Cici did not realize how cruel society was after Doomsday. After she transmigrated, she was assigned 5 husbands, and she was actually a little excited. Then, she ended up with these 5 husbands, and all kinds of emotional entanglements occurred, and she enjoyed it. Because these 5 people held important positions, they were very influential. They had indeed fallen in love with Pei Cici. Some people who wanted equal rights for women saw this and wanted Pei Cici to help change the current situation of women. They told Pei Cici that many women today's life was difficult. She hoped that Pei Cici would help her intercede. Pei Cici actually did not realize the seriousness of this matter. Because she was very well protected by her 5 husbands, she had no idea how cruel this world was to women. In his heart, he always felt that women were not protected. Wasn't it good to have so many husbands doting on them? She did not understand these women who wanted to cause trouble. Women were rare and had no superpowers, so it was normal. However, she still mentioned it to Fu Qiu and the others. However, this matter did not attract much attention. Pei Cici was very happy and did not care about this matter. Chapter 44-30. Later, she gave birth to many children for her 5 husbands and lived a happy life. However, something happened in the middle and it was a little bumpy. The original owner was one of the women who wanted to change her life. She thought of a way to make Pei Cici change her mind. Because only this woman who was doted on by several men in important positions had a chance to change the current situation of women's lives. Therefore, she secretly took Pei Cici away to see the women who had been turned into birth tools. Once a woman was matched and brought home, no one would care about what happened to her as long as she didn't die. The whole society was eager for these women to have more children. Therefore, some people who were matched with a suitable partner not only wanted her to give birth to their own children, but also wanted her to give birth to children for others. Some people resisted, but it was useless. When the original owner took Cece to find out about this, she was really shocked, disgusted, and scared. She thought that she was lucky to have met several husbands who doted on her. After she went back, she told the men about this. However, the men told her that this was the way society was, and that it was the way it had developed over the years. It couldn't be changed just because someone wanted to. They also promised Cece that she would be happy for the rest of her life and that they wouldn't let her be bullied. The men pretended to be in a difficult position and coaxed Cece. In order to prevent Cece from coming into contact with those women who led her astray, the men found out about the original owner and arranged for her to go home and nurse her children. The original owner was not anxious at all when she was matched. Later, it was found that she had already had a hysterectomy and couldn't have children. Many of the people who resisted the oppression of women had undergone such surgery. They would rather not have children of their own to fight for women's rights. If they couldn't change their situation, their organization would always make such a choice. Perhaps one day, this organization would disappear and all the women in the world would be domesticated like Cece. The original owner was executed because she had her hysterectomy and violated the rights of men. It was ridiculous. When Cece heard about this, she felt a little pity for the original owner. She also commented, "No matter what, you shouldn't hurt your body like this." She thought that the original owner was too extreme. She actually went all out and removed the uterus. This was the life of the original owner. Even when she died, she didn't regret it. Tangguo opened her eyes and looked at the nice room again. She felt disgusted. In fact, not all women in the apocalypse would encounter such a situation. There were always exceptions. After all, the daughters of rich and powerful people would still feel sorry for them and would not want them to encounter such a situation. However, if he became an exception, he would have to pay a fine. As long as one paid an expensive fine and paid taxes every year, such an encounter would not occur. But at the same time, for poor families, if they had a daughter, they didn't have to raise her themselves. They could directly send her to a special female cultivation base. This poor family would receive a large sum of money because of this. Now, Tangguo was in a female cultivation base. Today was the day that changed her fate. There was a lecture on women. Today's lecturer was called Yi Tian. It looked like a women's lecture, but it was just a way to domesticate the women here. Vertex. Chapter 44-31. However, Tangguo, who still had her memories, knew that teacher Yi Tian was not here to tame women. She chose the members of her organization through her lectures. In class, the previous host was angry at Yi Tian's words about being submissive to men. She scolded Yi Tian and questioned her. In short, she was not willing to be manipulated like a commodity. Yi Tian looked angry, but she was very satisfied. What Yi Tian loved the most was to be scolded by women whenever she talked about how the world was friendly and protective towards women. This meant that there were still sober women. With these sober women, there would be a day of change. Yi Tian was born in a rich family. Her family loved her very much. Her family did not agree with the current situation of women. She was also very powerful. She was a rare talent during the apocalypse. In addition, her grandfather was an important researcher who developed the virus during the apocalypse. Therefore, she did not have to pay fines and taxes and could live a normal life. After Yi Tian told the previous host everything, the latter joined the organization. Later, she saw that many of the members had undergone hysterectomy in Yi Tian's secret operating room. She also went to do it. In fact, Yi Tian had been researching a drug that could prevent women from getting pregnant without hysterectomy. She thought crazily that if she could not change the current situation, then she would let the human race go extinct. As long as she could change women's genes so that all women could not have children, then women would not be destroyed in the future. Tang Gui did not know if Yi Tian developed such a drug to help women change their genes. However, she hoped that there was a way. She had the same idea as Yi Tian. If the world was rotten and could not be changed, then it could only continue by oppressing women. Why not destroy it? She could understand Yi Tian's anger. She even had an idea. Since men cared so much about their offspring and children, why not let them have their own children? As this idea flashed through her mind, Tang Gui's expression became strange. She immediately looked for all kinds of books about genes in the space. She also asked Billy and the others in the interstellar era in the group, hoping that they could find more books about genes in the interstellar era for them. School Beauty, Big Brother Zi Yun, Big Brother Qi Xiao, Big Brother Mo. If you come across any strange fruits that can make men give birth, you must remember to keep them for me. The people in the group had a bunch of question marks. When they heard Tang Gui talk about the post-apocalyptic situation, they sighed and quickly agreed. There were all sorts of strange things in the Great Thousand Realms. Such a thing might very well exist. Of course, Tang Gui believed that there were, because some small worlds were derived from the real world. Therefore, the things created inside would become the characteristics of this world. After finding a bunch of documents, Tang Gui was not in a hurry to look through them. She was going to listen to Yi Tian's speech in 20 minutes. This time, she was a little anxious. There was a strange light in her eyes, as if she was looking forward to seeing Yi Tian immediately. Not only was she going to develop a drug that could change men's genes so that they could have children. He also needed to research a drug that would allow women to possess superpowers and modify their bodies, causing them to lose their fertility. Of course, she had made her own choice. She planned to combine the two drugs. In other words, if she wanted to awaken her superpower, she would have to lose her fertility. She had always only helped those who were willing to awaken their superpowers. At this time, Tang Gui was sitting in a large classroom. There were 200 women sitting in the classroom. They were all under the age of 16, and some were only a few years old. Yi Tian was a very beautiful woman. She was around 20 years old. Because of the protection of her family and her own ability, this society could not make things difficult for her. She was a person who lived at the top of the food chain. Looking at Yi Tian's fake smile, saying things that went against her heart, and her eyes flashed with disdain from time to time, Tang Gui's mood became better. Yi Tian said, "Therefore, don't think that life is not free now. Because women do not have superpowers, even after the apocalypse, the outside world is still very dangerous. Everything is to protect us women. That's why everyone is wearing a GPS wristwatch." Tang Gui knew that it was time for her to perform. Now, she was going to stand up angrily and scold Yi Tian. Chapter 44-32. Ms. Yi said that we were GPS watches to protect us women. I would like to ask, Ms. Yi Tian, why aren't you wearing one? Tang Gui suddenly stood up and asked, interrupting the quiet class. Yi Tian's eyes followed the voice and found Tang Gui's seat. She saw a very beautiful girl with eyes full of anger, which she liked to see. In today's society, there weren't many people with eyes like that. Most of them were yes men, not daring to say anything even if they were angry. They wouldn't dare to say something like this in class that went against the current rules. Ms. Yi, why aren't you answering my question? Tang Gui asked. Her eyes fell on Yi Tian's pair of white wrists. Not only was there no GPS watch, there wasn't even a bracelet. Because of the appearance of GPS watches, Yi Tian hated bracelet-type accessories. These accessories always gave her the feeling that they were shackles on her wrists, used to restrict a woman's freedom. "This doesn't seem to have anything to do with you," Yi Tian said. She pretended to be uncomfortable. "However, since you've raised your doubts, I'll explain. When I came to class, I was in a hurry and forgot to wear it. As far as I know, GPS watches are completely waterproof. You don't have to take them off even when you're bathing or swimming. Everyone here knows that ever since you wear a GPS watch, you've never taken it off unless you change it regularly. Once it's taken off, someone will come over to ask what's going on." Tang Guo looked straight at Yi Tian. "Everyone, let me tell you. Ms. Yi Tian, who said that wearing a GPS watch is protection for women, why doesn't she wear it?" Tang Guo suddenly raised her voice. "Because she doesn't need to wear it. I don't know Ms. Yi Tian's background, but I know that a woman who doesn't wear a GPS watch must be from a wealthy family." "How wealthy?" "Even if it can help them pay the fine, the tax for not wearing a GPS watch every year is not a small amount. Ms. Yi Tian doesn't even want to wear a GPS watch, but as a lecturer in a girls' school, she's here talking for half a day just to make us obey. Don't you think it's funny? Ms. Yi Tian, you really don't want to do anything. At least wear a fake one. Then your words will be more convincing. Why do you wear it? Because this is simply exploiting our freedom as women. We are all of the same gender. Why do you want to help society suppress us? Madam Yi Tian, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Are you worthy of being a lecturer? Don't appear in the lecture hall with that arrogant and hypocritical look. Just looking at it makes me feel disgusted. Students, do you still not understand? We are not free. We are not free from birth." At this time, someone interrupted Tang Guo and whispered, "Teacher Yi is willing to pay the fine and taxes because her family is rich." "Student Tang, do you hate the rich? Do you have cerebral palsy? Humans are born free. Why should we be exploited by society? If you don't know how to speak, cut off your tongue. You're being exploited, yet you still think that it's natural. It's really hard to wake someone who's pretending to be asleep." Tang Guo continued to scold Yi Tian and those who refuted her and thought that she hated the rich. Chapter 44-33. The effect was not bad. Her attitude made a few girls who were also angry stand up and help her scold. They were not afraid even if they were scolded and locked up in a small dark room. And this bullshit girls' school. What the hell are they learning? It's useless. They only teach us how to obey orders all day, but they don't give us any practical knowledge. They always say that women need to be protected and loved, but they only give us the chance to learn ordinary words. They don't teach us anything that can help us find a job in this society. Students, do you know why this is? They are afraid. They are afraid that we will be like before the apocalypse. They are afraid that we will awaken and return to our position in this society and be on equal footing with them. If we stand up, it will be a loss for them. Yi Tian did not stop them, nor did she press the alarm to call for help. She closed her eyes and listened to the angry curses that entered her ears. She felt extremely comfortable. Every time she was a lecturer at a girls' school, she wanted to hear all the girls in the class scold her like this. As long as someone stood up and scolded her, she would never press the alarm or refute. She would just let them scold her to their heart's content. The others thought that Yi Tian might have fainted from anger. However, Tang Guo could tell from the subtle expressions that Yi Tian was enjoying the scolding. This behavior made her laugh, but she also felt a little bitter. What kind of twisted world was it that forced a person to such a perverted state? Although Yi Tian did not call for the alarm, some girls thought, Tang Guo is too much. She scolded the teacher like this. We won't be able to escape if she gets punished. That's right. Isn't our life good now? Moreover, the knowledge that Tangua said the boys learn is useless to us. Girls don't have to go out to work. They can just eat and drink at home. For our safety, let's call for help. Everyone's wristwatch could not only locate their location, but also had a communication function. After a few students finished discussing, they informed the dean. After a while, the classroom door was pushed open. The dean came in with a few people. The classroom suddenly became quiet. Only Tangua stood there. She was especially conspicuous. The dean said, Miss Yi Tian, I heard that you have some trouble here. Yi Tian nodded. One of my classmates seems to be very dissatisfied with me. She looked at Tangua unkindly. This student's thoughts are a little extreme. I didn't expect that she would attract the dean here. If that's the case, then let's take this student away and educate him properly. Hopefully, he won't cause any trouble for teacher Yi Tian in the next lesson. However, Yi Tian refused. She stopped and looked at Tangua. The corners of her lips curled up. Dean, you should know my hobby. I prefer to teach the students who resist fiercely. Haven't you heard that all the students I've taught are extremely obedient? The dean of teaching had indeed heard of this before. He felt that those students must have suffered before, so he agreed. All right, Ms. Yi Tian, please educate this student well. I hope that she can understand that this society protects and cherishes women. Of course, I'll let this student understand. Yi Tian's smile was extremely strange. Vertex. Chapter 44-34. From the dean's point of view, this student was going to suffer. He did not think that her life would be in danger. Yi Tian had never done such a thing. As for the method, he did not care. As long as she was obedient when she came back. This class is almost over. Class dismissed. Yi Tian looked at Tangua deeply, as if to say, just you wait. You'll get it. This scene made the student who had secretly reported her breathe a sigh of relief. Ms. Yi Tian did not seem to hold a grudge against the other students in the class. Fortunately, the girls had already started whispering among themselves. Let's stay away from Tangua in the future. Not only do we have to stay away from Tangua, but also those who spoke up for Tangua. Yes. We don't want to be implicated if they do anything. Tangua was taken away by Yi Tian's people. She could still hear the voices of the female students. See, this was the current situation. Some people fought back, but there would always be others who would drag them down. She did not feel much about this. This was human nature. Yi Tian only took Tangua away because she did not care about quality. Although she admired the students who had scolded her, she could not take them away. Because they were still not firm enough and would still waver. Their voices became softer and softer, until they disappeared. She did not hate their behavior. If she could succeed one day, this group of people would be a helping hand. Most importantly, with someone taking the lead, they would definitely stand up and support her passionately to protect their own interests. As for those who remained silent, Yi Tian did not care. However, Yi Tian did not like the group of people who reported her. But the current situation was like this. She wanted to see the new talent and did not have the time to think about him. Tangua was taken to Yi Tian's house. Yi Tian was able to take Tangua away because of her powerful background and because she had indeed tamed many female students. Ms. Yi Tian, do you feel very superior now? Tangua sat on the stool and sneered. She still had to put on a good show. She did not want to break her character and give people the impression that she was too abrupt. Yi Tian would not let her enter the core immediately. She would definitely have to go through various tests. Speaking of which, none of the women that Yi Tian had taken as her subordinates had betrayed her. Everyone's beliefs would be firm. They would always remember that in order to obtain the rights they deserved, they would have to make sacrifices. Only by risking their lives to do this would they be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Therefore, even if they were exposed and made a mistake, they did not reveal the existence of Yi Tian and her companions. Even the rulers of this society did not notice Yi Tian's organization. They only thought that it was a group of crazy women who wanted to cause trouble. Another reason why Yi Tian had not been discovered was that Yi Tian was very powerful. She knew what she was doing and supported her. In fact, there were quite a few normal families like the Yi family. Some of them had slowly disappeared and assimilated with the long river of time. There were also some who had no choice but to disguise themselves to protect themselves. Some people didn't like the current abnormal development of society, including some men. Humans are diverse. Not all men and not all women have the same way of thinking. For example, Yi Tian's younger brother, Yi Min, did not like the current situation. The Yi family kept many books and audio recordings from before the apocalypse. Yi Min yearned for that kind of free and peaceful world. Although there was no absolute fairness in this world, that kind of society, in Yi Min's opinion, was the world that people yearned for. The Peak. Chapter 44-35. Yi Min also didn't want a wife whose genes were matched by the system. He couldn't accept it. He still preferred the love stories written before the apocalypse. Whether it was love at first sight or love after a long time, it was always the two parties who liked each other. It was so beautiful. Yi Min liked to read and write short articles. Sometimes, he would even write some limericks. It could be said that he was a sad literary young man. After knowing what his sister had done, he decided to make a decision. He made a decision. He asked Yi Tian to help him lose his ability to reproduce. This was a piece of cake for Yi Tian. She helped Yi Min inject the drug and he would lose his fertility completely. It didn't matter if a man wanted to enter the system or not because there weren't enough women in this world. If a man entered the spouse system, some people would be more than happy. Therefore, many people knew that the Yi family's young master was infertile and didn't deserve to enter the system to choose a spouse. However, it was still easy for people like them to find a wife. But Yi Min didn't have such thoughts. Other than training, he was covering for Yi Tian. He often said to Yi Tian, "Sister, when will you succeed? I estimated my lifespan. It's about 200 years. I'm 23 now. I still have about 170 years to live. No matter what, you must succeed before this deadline. At least let me have a twilight love." Yi Tian and Tanggua came back to their senses at the same time. Yi Tian looked at Tanggua and her gaze fell on her GPS watch. She smiled and asked, "You don't want to wear this either?" "Who wants to wear shackles?" Tanggua asked. Yi Tian raised her eyebrows. "You can take it off now and feel the feeling of not wearing it. I've taken it off before. Every time, I'd be caught and thrown into a dark room. This is the Yi family. What are you doing? You can't run away from the Yi family. I just want you to feel this freedom. When you wear it back, you'll feel terrible. If I say this is revenge, can you accept it?" "You're indeed the hypocritical Miss Yi Tian." Although she was angry, Tanggua still took off the GPS watch. From her point of view, she really wanted to take it off. The moment she took it off, Tanggua felt as if the weight on her shoulders had disappeared. Yi Tian walked up to her and patted Tanggua's shoulder. She whispered into her ear, "Do you feel free now?" "Of course." Tanggua looked at the wristwatch that had been taken off. If I can crush this thing, I'll be freer. Yi Tian thought to herself, that day will come. She would let that day come. At that time, all women would no longer have to wear these prisoners' shackles. They would regain their freedom and obtain their human rights. Yi Tian did not let Tang Guo wear it again. Instead, she left her alone in the room. You can walk around freely here. When Yi Tian walked out, she turned around and looked at the watch in Tang Guo's hand. Of course, you don't have to wear anything you hate. Madam Yi Tian, you are indeed very sinister. You want me to regain my freedom first and then wear this when I get out, right? Congratulations, you're very smart. You guessed right, but there's no reward. Tang Guo watched Yi Tian walk away briskly. She was obviously very happy. The anger on her face slowly disappeared. Madam Yi Tian, you're also very smart, but you're even more noble. The Peak. Chapter 44-36. In the past few days, Tang Guo had followed Yi Tian's instructions and walked around the big yard. She had grown up in the female cultivation base. Although she could go to other places, no matter where she went, her every move seemed to be monitored. But now that she was not wearing a GPS wristwatch, even if there were cameras in the yard, it was different for her. Moreover, she did not think that Yi Tian would stare at the cameras all the time. She only felt that Yi Tian wanted to let her experience freedom first before locking her in a cage as punishment. Even if she knew, she still wanted to enjoy this short period of freedom. It was what she desired the most. Tang Guo walked according to the original owner's thoughts. In fact, she was asking the system to help her eliminate the possibility that there was something monitoring the Yi family. In the end, there were only some mini surveillance cameras outside the Yi family's house. There were none in the yard. That's good. Have you taken control of the network here? System, yes, I have. Now, they can only see what I want them to see. Then block the signals on all the female GPS wristwatches. Let them think that there's a problem with the product. System, you're as bad as ever. Dear host, it's done. The current system was very powerful. To him, this kind of thing was just a matter of moving his finger. No, he did not seem to have any fingers. News, for some reason, all the GPS wristwatches have lost their signals. Currently, the experts are studying it. Their initial guess is that there's a problem with the product. Tang Guo was very happy to see the news. Yi Tian was also very happy to see the news. There would be a day when this kind of thing would have a problem. It would be best if it never had a signal. Yi Tian really wanted to say this, but in the end, she said, you must really hope that these things will never have a signal, right? Of course. Tang Guo was sure. She was even gloating. She was laughing like crazy in her heart. Miss Yi Tian obviously wanted it too, didn't she? Sister, I heard that there's no signal on that thing. It said that it's a product malfunction. An excited male voice came from outside. Sis, this is really great, that thing should be broken. Before he could finish his sentence, Yi Min realized that there was another person sitting not far from Yi Tian. Although she was a woman, Yi Min was still very vigilant. She quickly changed the topic. This is really strange. He didn't know who the strange woman in the room was, but he absolutely couldn't let outsiders know his and his sister's attitude. Otherwise, it would bring disaster to them. Tang Guo almost couldn't hold back her laughter. If she guessed correctly, Yi Min probably wanted to say, this is great, that thing should have been broken long ago. Sis, you have guests. Yi Min was not very interested in women. He was not interested in those who had awakened. As for those who had not awakened, he was even less interested. Therefore, he subconsciously did not look at Tanguo. His gaze was fixed on Yi Tian. Yes, a classmate who talked back to me in the girls' school. I brought her back to educate her. After Yi Tian finished speaking, Yi Min's eyes lit up. Oh, then she might be a new member. This time, his gaze fell on Tanguo's face. At first glance, this little girl was quite pretty. Sis, how did she talk back to you? This was Yi Min's happiest moment. Like Yi Tian, he was also a little perverted. He just wanted to hear his sister get scolded when she went to the lecture. Yi Tian looked at Tanguo. She said that I'm hypocritical and disgusting. Yi Min listened carefully and finally commented seriously. He even walked in front of Tanguo. This female classmate of yours is very unreasonable. How can she scold people like that? She should be brought back to be educated by my sister. Don't talk to me in such a superior tone. Unless you were born with a tracking watch, you don't have the right. Tanguo felt that the Yi siblings were a little perverted. Yi Min probably came here to be scolded like Yi Tian. Then, she would fulfill his wish and let him have a good time. Male animals who only know how to exploit women. Yi Min, continue. If you join them in the future, you won't be able to hear such perfect scolding. Peak. Chapter 44-37. Currently, the GPS wristwatches have lost their signal. We haven't found any problems yet, but we can't rule out the possibility that there's a problem with this batch of GPS wristwatches. It had been a few days since Yi Min was scolded that day. At this time, according to the original owner's timeline, she also found that there was something wrong with the Yi siblings, so she didn't scold them for no reason. Instead, she observed silently from the side and acted like an invisible person. Yi Tian said, "It seems that they haven't found the cause. I'm really curious about what's going on with the GPS wristwatches." Sister, you're thinking about what if the GPS wristwatches have no signal in the future, right? Yi Min exposed her and made a weird but happy expression. I like that too. Yi Tian was still serious and shook her head. How is that possible? Yeah. Yi Min was a little confused. Yeah, how was that possible? In today's world, men had already developed to the point where they had absolute control and authority. There was nothing for women to do. Wouldn't it be a waste if they didn't exploit such a good opportunity? After the Yi siblings finished talking, they didn't avoid Tanguo. They noticed Tanguo's weird expression but didn't explain, as if they wanted her to know more. Tanguo was a little anxious. She didn't know when Yi Tian would bring her to the lab to do something big. Currently, she had already browsed through the information several times and was ready to do something big. With the strength of her soul, it was easy for her to have a photographic memory. What's impossible? Tanguo suddenly said, attracting the attention of the two siblings. Their eyes fell on her. Tanguo continued, if I remember correctly, the wristwatches are all replaced in the same batch. Even if they're broken and replaced, there's still spares produced in the same batch. Why are so many broken at the same time? Can't they all break next time? Yi Min corrected her. That's because there's no signal. Don't you know what this thing is used for? What's the difference between no signal and broken? Yi Min liked to be scolded, so Tanguo fulfilled his wish. Yi Min wasn't angry at all. He even said happily, you're right, you're right. Other than the women in his family, he rarely got scolded by other women like this. Her fierce tone was quite cute. Compared to those pitiful domesticated women who were obedient and dull, this kind of woman was like a real life, a bit like the women he saw in the documentaries. That's not impossible. After all, we haven't found the specific reason yet. I'm guessing that the newly produced wristwatches are likely to be tested first and won't be completely replaced. At present, all the girls' schools are temporarily closed, and no one is allowed to leave at will. At this point, Yi Tian laughed mockingly. They even sent out a notice saying that the reason why there was no signal on the wristwatch might be due to the appearance of a mutated monster. They couldn't rule out the possibility that it was due to the monster's sound waves. Weren't they just afraid that women would run out for freedom? Once this notice is out, those women living at home will be closely watched by their families. In this twisted world, women were a family's resource. If they disappeared, it would be a family's loss. This was the new world after the apocalypse. Although it had not been lost, the virus had long been eradicated. However, there were mutant plants, mutant animals, and new monsters that were born after the apocalypse. Other than human settlements, other places were indeed more dangerous. Yi Tian said, "Let's wait for 2 more days and see what's the situation." Tang Guo was deep in thought. It seemed that she couldn't destroy the next batch of wristwatches that they were experimenting with. She had to wait until they fully produced them and let all the women wear them. The Apex. Chapter 44-38. Yi Tian had already left. She most likely went to the laboratory. Yi Min was still there. He did not know much about the laboratory. However, he had a position that was neither too important nor too small. It was related to literature and history. Unfortunately, the arrival of the apocalypse destroyed countless precious materials. Yi Min's job was to collect and restore the remnants of the precious materials. Therefore, it was not strange that he knew so much about the society before the apocalypse. In his hands, there were countless books and audio recordings. After Yi Tian left, Yi Min moved to Tang Guo's side. "Let's go. I'll bring you to watch the documentary before the apocalypse. You definitely have not seen that kind of society before. You will definitely like it." Tang Guo did not need to be brainwashed. Moreover, Yi Tian now needed people to awaken on their own, not brainwashed by them. Yi Min did this because she wanted to share good things with Tang Guo. What kind of documentary is it? For this, Tang Guo thought that it was indeed a variety of more serious videos, such as military drills. At the very least, it would be a video in the news broadcast. She never thought that there would only be one character in the video. This character was also a female, and she was quite beautiful. However, what attracted her the most was that in front of the table, there were huge bowls filled with food. This is a female before the apocalypse. Yi Min introduced to Tang Guo. According to the various materials I found, it shows that the appetite of females before the apocalypse was bigger. Cough cough cough. Tang Guo chose to forgive a retard like Yi Min because the apocalypse had lasted for hundreds of years. Currently, it had only been less than 100 years since the apocalypse. Therefore, the preserved videos were indeed very precious and rare. You see, there are so many bowls of food in front of her. She can finish them all in a while. Yi Min held his chin with a shocked face. Don't look at her small body. In fact, she has a huge appetite. System, ha 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 ha, where did this retard come from? Haven't you heard of fake eating? To be able to eat so much food and maintain a good figure, it is very likely that the females before the apocalypse had very powerful strength. This is the only explanation that can explain where the food they consumed went. Yi Min fell into deep thought. Perhaps, the virus and the apocalypse deprived women of their abilities, allowing men to gain the upper hand. From other information, before the apocalypse, the sexes seemed to be relatively balanced, which means that even if these women had great power, they did not exploit men like they do now. Tang Guo didn't disturb Yi Min's imagination. In fact, there was nothing to laugh at. That society had existed for hundreds of years. It was already Yi Min's ability to retain such clear information. It was not an easy task to repair all of this. Yimin wasn't wrong based on these inferences. I don't think so. Tangwa still intended to give the correct answer indirectly. Judging from this woman's appearance, her physical strength is still about the same as our women today. In fact, she might even be a little weaker. Why would you think that? I'm just saying. Eating a lot doesn't mean you have great power. Besides, she might not really eat the food. This document only had a video, and the audio could not be restored. In fact, many of the videos that Yimin had restored had no sound, so it was impossible to determine what the other party was saying. Vertex. Chapter 44-39. Please continue. Yimin's interest was obviously piqued. Although the restored information of the past was very precious. Although the old records were very rare, few people were interested in some information about women other than him. At least, in this world that was exploiting and domesticating women, they didn't want to see information about how powerful women used to be. Therefore, Yimin didn't have anyone else to discuss this. What he discussed with others was about other information other than women. Without more professionals, they naturally didn't have any clues. Tangwa obviously knew this. Seeing that Yimin wanted to know, she said, "You saw her eating and chewing, but did you see her swallowing?" "Of course I saw it." "Didn't she swallow it?" According to her, chewing a few times before swallowing a mouthful of food is more problematic. Also, when we eat, we don't chew and swallow at the same time. I don't think she chews a mouthful of meat slowly and swallows it at the end, right? Yimin even took some snacks to eat at the side. His eyes were filled with surprise. That seemed to be the case. When he ate snacks, he chewed and swallowed at the same time. If he only chewed and swallowed at the end, it didn't match eating at all. It was very awkward. That makes sense. What do you mean? I know how to read lips. Tangwa said. Yimin didn't find it strange that she knew this skill. There were indeed people who knew it, but no one would help him read it. Those people all went to look at other information. Yimin was also afraid that if he often brought this kind of information, it would cause those people to be disgusted and they would destroy the information. He was able to obtain this information because he didn't look too serious on the surface. He said that he had a unique taste when he met people, so they didn't care. After all, everyone now knew that young Master Ye's thing wasn't active and couldn't make women pregnant. He lost the right to enter the spouse system to choose a spouse. Maybe he was a little perverted. Can you tell what she's saying? Yimin asked excitedly. Tangwa looked at the video and said, "She just said, thank you for the rocket." She said again, "Thank you for the 10 rockets." This time, she said, thank you for the spaceship." "Brother, I love you." "Brother, what do you want to eat?" "I'll eat it for you." Tangwa originally thought that Yimin would be shocked. How could this happen? Yimin was indeed very surprised, but it was different from what she had imagined. Yimin said, "According to the information that has been restored, there is no indication that the technology before the end of the world was more advanced than it is now. I'm really shocked. Their rockets are already used as gifts. Spaceships. They don't even want to think about it." Yimin was shocked and felt that something was amiss. How rich was that big brother number 1? Was he the richest man in the world? That woman was indeed very beautiful. If she was the richest man in the world, she should be able to afford to give him such a gift. System, host, this child is so pitiful. I reckon that they haven't even restored the information about the live streaming industry. Tangwa, it's not easy. After the apocalypse, these things were destroyed. It's not easy to preserve them. These are all private enterprises. After the apocalypse, they are of no use and are not valued. Naturally, no one will protect them in advance. I don't think so. If I'm not wrong, this should be a kind of virtual gift, Tanghua explained to Yimin Vertex. Chapter 4440. Yimin was less shocked just now. There was no live broadcast industry in the current society. It should be said that the various industries before the apocalypse did not exist here. After all, it had not been more than 100 years since the apocalypse. Many people had experienced hundreds of years of the apocalypse and their hearts had long been distorted. It was not surprising that they developed to their current state. Although the current technology was not bad, there were not many that provided entertainment for humans. Yimin agreed with Tanghua. So you mean that this woman is actually performing eating? Yimin's eyes flashed with curiosity. This is really an interesting profession. Unfortunately, it's not available now. However, you said that she seemed to be faking eating. Is she lying? The viewers might not be unaware. They are willing to send gifts. I think they are just watching a show. This is the boredom of rich people. Tanghua said. She had also come into contact with this industry. Some things were fake. Did some rich people not know? No, they knew. They just enjoyed this feeling. For others, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars might be a lot and take a long time to earn. For them, it might not even be enough pocket money. If ordinary people were to compare, they would lose if they were serious. That's true. Yimin did not know what to think and understood. What do you think this industry is called? Live broadcast of eating. Tanghua took the literal meaning and directly said eating broadcast. It was too direct. She did not want her identity to be discovered by other transmigrators. For example, the female lead Pei Cece. It was best if they did not recognize each other to avoid trouble. It should be called eating broadcast. It's simple and easy to remember. Yimin said. Tanghua pursed her lips and smiled. She nodded. That's a good name. Then I'll show you something else. Usually, people rarely look at these materials. It's just our family watching the show. This time, Yimin showed Tanghua a clip of a Xianxia film. With their current ability, they could not restore the video without any damage. Therefore, a lot of the materials were fragments. Even so, Yimin watched with relish. She explained to Tanghua, "Don't think that this is real. This is called a TV series. It was made by humans before the apocalypse. It's a way for them to entertain themselves. This was a type of TV series called Xianxia. If you're interested, you can come and look at other genres. Unfortunately, these things are not allowed to be filmed now." Yimin felt a little regretful. Tanghua did not interrupt. She could feel Yimin's regret. Do you like the world before the apocalypse? Of course. That world is rich and colorful. There are many things worth knowing. Yimin said, the current world is like a huge cage. It's not only women that are trapped, but also men. You're right. Tanghua smiled and asked, do you have any superpowers? Yes, Yimin said, but it's not usually used. Why? Because if I use my superpower too often, it will. Yimin suddenly remembered that the person sitting beside him was a woman. Seeing Tanghua's serious look, he said, you should know that if a man uses his superpower too often, there will be side effects, right? I know. If they use it too much, they'll become like beasts who don't know etiquette and shame, trampling on women as they wish. Yimin's eyelids twitched. Vertex. Chapter 44-41. I don't want it to be like that. Now our technology has developed well, and we also have weapons to deal with mutant plants and animals. Unless it's life-threatening, we won't use it. Yi Min said. It's a good idea, Tang Guo said, but as far as I know, some men will exhaust their superpowers just for this. Yi Min said, anyway, I won't. I'm not a pervert. I heard that Yi family's young master won't have offspring. I wonder if it's because of this. Go away, don't guess blindly. Yi Min was speechless. I just feel that everything is too twisted now. This is not what I want, so I can only give it up. So, I chose to inject the drug. You're really different. What kind of life do you want? Yi Min's eyes became a little longing, like before the apocalypse, and also like the ancient poem, Guan Guan Zhu Jiu, in the river, a fair lady is a gentleman's mate. I want to marry a girl that I like and likes me. We respect each other, and no one is a slave to the other. After Yi Min answered, he glanced at Tang Guo embarrassedly. He felt that this girl who was about to join them made him feel that this world was a little bit real. Although there were many brave and decisive girls under his sister, he didn't have that kind of thought. But this girl was different. He couldn't figure out what was different about her. Maybe, she would discuss with him the information that people didn't care about. Or maybe, she wouldn't think that his dream was an extravagant request. Instead, she would discuss with him with a smile, as if she supported him. Many people said that Yi family's young master was a person with a mental problem. What about you? Do you have any ideas about the future? Yi Min asked. Yes, Tang Guo nodded seriously. I also like the world before the apocalypse that you mentioned. Men and women are free, and no one can exploit the other. Before Yi Min could speak, Tang Guo said, but to achieve this process, the woman must stand in an absolute position first. By the way, about the side effects of men's superpowers, has anyone researched a way to solve it? Tang Guo always felt that this matter was not as simple as a virus. Yi Min's expression turned serious. Yes, I did. Later on, I found that this was the only side effect. I couldn't find any clues, so I didn't bother with it. Tang Guo's incomparably powerful divine soul could, of course, sense the aura of Yi Min's special ability. In fact, there was a special energy in this world. At present, she was already cultivating. In other words, she could even pretend to be a superpowered person. She felt that she would still deal with the changes in male superpowers. Just like Yi Min, not all men in this world were bad. There were also men like this who yearned for a better world. Just like Pei Sisi, as long as she wasn't being exploited, she wouldn't care if others were. A few days later, Yi Tian asked Tang Guo if she was willing to join her organization. Of course, Tang Guo agreed. This time, she finally entered the laboratory. The first thing she did was to show off her intelligence and her photographic memory, which attracted Yi Tian's attention. She didn't know what Yi Tian had done, but she knew that Tang Guo was living with the Yi family. While Tang Guo was in the laboratory with Yi Tian, her friends in the group gave her a surprise. Margaret, I found a fruit tree here called the Saint Demonic Fruit. It said that it can make men pregnant and have children. Shengguan Yonggu, Uncle Master, I had an accident when I was exploring secrets and went to a very strange world. I only found out about your current situation when I saw the chat history. I also know of a magical fruit here. This is a world with all kinds of powerful monsters. Fortunately, I'm a cultivator. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to survive. Fortunately, I'm a cultivator. Otherwise, I would definitely have been stripped naked by the women here. Mo Yuntian, kid, do you think that you're proud of being an old virgin? Shengguan Yonggu, master. I learned it from you. Mo Yuntian, : Don't dawdle. Hurry up and say it. The girl is still waiting. Peek. Chapter 44-42. Shengguan Yungu, Martial Uncle, this world is a woman's world. There are no men. As long as the women here reach adulthood, they will get pregnant. Basically, they will automatically have a child every 5 years. Maybe it's because the heavens want balance. They can't keep having children, so there's a fruit tree here called the contraceptive fruit. If they don't want to have children, they can eat the contraceptive fruit to avoid getting pregnant again. Also, these women who can't have children automatically become guards. Their power will become very strong. Ziyun, it's really a world with all kinds of strange things. I've heard a lot about the balance of yin and yang. If there's yin, there's yang, and if there's yang, there's yin. Yungu's experience this time has made me realize something and overturned some of my thoughts. Mo Yuntian, yeah, I thought it was exciting enough for the girl to show us the world. I didn't expect Yungu's experience in the arcane realm to be so eye-opening. Empress Qin, in other words, where Yungu is now, there are only women. The heavens have created other conditions for this world to continue existing. Qi Shao, you can say that. Margaret, it seems that what Yungu and I got should be able to help the school bell, right? School bell, these two things are a surprise to me. But if we want to use them in the current world, we must go through various experiments. There were certain differences between the humans of each small world. These were not difficult for Tanghua. She had the most basic things. The rest was just a matter of time. Tanghua received the contraceptive fruit and fruit from Margaret and Shengguan Yungu. There were ripe fruits, unripe fruits, buds, and saplings. They gave Tanghua a lot in case she didn't have enough. With this foundation, Tanghua could use these things to cultivate more boldly. Shengguan Yungu, although this world is a little strange, I wanted to leave earlier. But now that the school bell can use the things here, I'll think of a way to leave after your situation is solved. The Empress is quite friendly to me at this time. Margaret, the Empress must be interested in you. Is the Empress pretty? Shengguan Yungu, the women here are all pretty. Margaret, are you tempted? Empress Qin, Shengguan Yungu, not at all. Margaret, what if she seduces you, or forces you? Shengguan Yungu, my willpower is good. Although they are strong, they are no match for me. I am an immortal after all. Now, the people of this world regard him as the Grand Tutor and respect him very much. Senior Margaret, I think there is something wrong with your way of thinking. Margaret, no wonder you're like your master. You deserve to be single. Shengguan Yungu, what's wrong with being single? Mo Yuntian, yeah, what's wrong with being single? Look at Ziyun, Qi Shao, Piao Miao, Silverhoop, Emmanuel, Harold, Alan, and Empress Dowager Qin. They are all single dogs. Qi Shao, I feel offended. Ziyun, offended +1 ethereal, +2, Empress Dowager Qin, I'm not single, I'm a widow. Mo Yuntian, looking at the people in the group, there was nothing to share in the apocalypse. Tanghua sent them some stock and then left the group. Vertex. Chapter 44-43. Tanghua came to the lab and saw Yi Tian's serious face. She asked, Sister Yi, any progress? Yi Tian nodded, then shook her head. The current version of the drug can indeed make women infertile, but there are still some side effects. Also, I don't have time to observe it. I don't dare to take the risk and let women use it. Also, I'm worried about something. Yi Tian looked serious. Tanghua asked, what is it? A woman who can't have children. Even if she avoids being used as a breeding tool, she will face another kind of danger without a strong force. In fact, Tanghua had already thought about it, but she still listened to Yi Tian. You know that men's superpowers have some side effects. After using their superpowers frequently, they will go into heat like animals. Based on the current situation, no matter how bad a woman's genes are, as long as she can have children, her safety is guaranteed. She can, but without the ability to have children, maybe those crazy people will use this group of infertile women to give superpowers. Yi Tian didn't finish, but the faces of the women in the lab changed. Yes, at the end of the day, it was not the best idea to make women lose their ability to reproduce. The reason why they were researching this drug was because this drug was already the simplest experiment for them. Rather than saying that the current drug was prepared for all women, it was better to say that it was prepared for women who didn't want to have children. Because the side effects of the drug were too severe, some of the women in the lab had already undergone hysterectomy. They were afraid that one day, they would be used as a breeding tool. If someone found out that they had undergone such surgery and wanted to force them to do something else, they would immediately bite the poison in their mouths and commit suicide. This was their determination, their final pride. It seems that the only way to make women stand up again is to have strong force, Tanguo said. Yi Tian's face was pale. Unfortunately, I can't find out how to activate the superpower. In the past few years, the men in the Yi family had cooperated with Yi Tian to do experiments on superpower activation. Unfortunately, there was little progress. They couldn't find the point of activation at all. Sister Yi, I want to go out for a walk. Tanguo suddenly said. Since I can't find it on humans, I want to look for it on other animals and plants. It's very dangerous outside. Besides, we've done experiments on animals and plants over the years. I still want to go out and take a look. Tanguo said stubbornly, I've seen the previous experiment records. I feel that the type is too small, and some of the plants in the deeper areas don't seem to have been studied. Because those places are too dangerous. Even a paranormal might not be able to escape unscathed. Yi Tian said, looks like I can't persuade you. That's fine too. Since we're on this path, there's no turning back. Since you want to go, I'll arrange 2 people for you. Alright, thank you, Sister Yi. Tanguo originally wanted to study the gene modification agent. With Billy and Emmanuel's help, she could obtain the gene modification agent from the galaxy and conduct her research. The results would definitely be quick, and many side effects would be eliminated. Later, Tanguo changed her mind when Margaret found the Son of God's demonic fruit and the child-avoiding fruit. She felt that it was better to use these 2 things to make a fuss. She had to think of a way to turn these 2 fruits into one fruit. Vertex. Chapter 44-44. In other words, it was grafting and cultivating so that the fruit could maintain 2 characteristics. Both women and men in this world could obtain the desired effect after eating it. It was easy to say, but also very difficult. She still needed a large number of white mice to do experiments. In the end, the people in her lab might even have to sacrifice themselves. However, with her around, she would ensure the safety of all the lab members. This was not difficult for her. The next day, before Tanguo could go out, she received a locator watch from the women's cultivation base. After the last test, it was said that the locator watch had no problems. Yi Min helped her get the locator watch. He winked and said, I'll keep it for you. Anyway, we're together. No one can find out. No, give it to me. Tanguo took the locator watch. Since it would be broken in a while, it could be used as a time watch. This time, Yi Min was also going out. He said that he was shameless and wanted to go with them. He also said that his superpower was stronger and more restrained than ordinary superpowered people. Even if he used his superpower, he could restrain himself. Even if he could not control himself, he could inject himself with the medicine Yi Tian gave him. His intention was good. Yimin also showed Tangguo the medicine he brought to show his sincerity. If one day, there was a chance to lose your superpower, would you be willing to return to before the apocalypse? Yimin asked. Tangguo nodded. Yes. Of course. Yimin raised his eyebrows. Why not? But in this world, if you don't have your superpower, it means you're useless. I'm afraid you won't see the beautiful world you imagine. You'll be bullied and can't protect the people you want to protect. Yimin was a bit conflicted. It seemed to make sense. Then don't lose it. After a long time, Yimin said. Tangguo was just saying. At present, what they needed to solve was the survival environment of women. As for other things, they could only take one step at a time. Many problems could not be solved in one step. They had to be solved slowly. For 3 months, Tangguo took Yimin to find all kinds of strange plants, animals, and some special fruits and saplings. Because they had space superpowered people with them, they could store all these things. Of course, they also encountered many dangers during this period. Tangguo did not show her true strength. She only showed some fighting skills. It was not a problem for her to nimbly avoid some dangers. Yimin's superpower was indeed very powerful. It could help her escape from danger every time. However, after using her supernatural ability, she could feel that Yimin would become a little different. Later, she proposed to observe Yimin after he used his superpower. Yimin didn't refuse. Her sister said that Tangguo was a genius. Maybe she could see through the problems of psychics. In fact, even if Tangguo could see the problem with these superpowered people and could solve it, she would not solve it for the time being. At most, she would make some things to suppress the side effects. A year later, Tangguo and Yimin returned to the laboratory. He had been in the laboratory for a year. She mixed the Son of God's demonic fruit and the child avoidance fruit together. In the end, she eliminated the other plants one by one and brought them out for individual research. Half a year ago, she had discovered the special effects of these 2 fruits and tested them on mice. The women in the laboratory had all taken the contraceptive fruit. Moreover, it stimulated a strong force. It was not like a superpower, but it was not inferior to a superpower. In any case, his combat strength was very high. The peak. Chapter 44-45. At first, Yi Tian didn't know what the Son of God magic fruit was. They first fed the female white mice the Son of God magic fruit. There was no reaction. It was just an ordinary fruit. Later, Tangguo suggested giving the male white mice the Son of God magic fruit. She also proposed a shocking idea. Let male white mice mate with male white mice. In another laboratory, male white mice mate with female white mice. The final result was extremely shocking. Because they were all pregnant. At that time, Yi Tian sighed. Humans, no matter when, can never find out all the secrets of life. Although this experiment was considered a very shocking discovery for them, it was still a very shocking discovery. It was unbelievable. Yi Tian said, only males can get pregnant after eating this kind of fruit. The fruit that can prevent pregnancy and stimulate great power seems to be specially prepared for women. Here's the problem. Many women should be willing to eat the fruit, but men might not necessarily eat the fruit, Yi Tian said. Sister Yi, are you afraid that this world will be destroyed? Yi Tian shook her head. What am I afraid of? Since what remains is evil, not destruction. If we can't get the human rights we deserve, how can we continue to talk about the continuation of humanity? The reason why humans are humans and not animals is that other than animal instincts, humans have the ability to think that all animals don't have. Since we have the ability to think, why do we have to do something that only animals do? Shouldn't we choose the life we want? Apart from the effect of the two fruits, the continuation of humanity is completed by men and women together. It's not by oppressing the other party. Otherwise, what's the difference between us and animals? So, I'm not afraid of this world being destroyed. The crisis of humanity is not caused by women not having children. Tangua nodded. Then that's it. What we need is the human rights of women. Before that, why should we consider the continuation of humanity? The others have never thought about us. What do you think? Yi Tian asked Tangua. Whether it's the Son of God magic fruit or the Son of God magic fruit, they're both good things. However, they can't stop it, Tangua said. I also want the two fruits to become one, and I want them to multiply and become a very common fruit. The people who eat this batch of fruits first may have to be carefully selected. After all, there are still women in this world who are unwilling to lose their fertility. No matter how powerful you are, they won't be able to accept it. Yi Tian said, I'll take care of this. Actually, there are many people who have the same idea as us. When the time comes, let's give this batch of fruits to them. Let's graft it first. We don't know what the result will be. I hope it won't lose all its effects, Tangua said. Yi Tian's eyes sparkled with excitement. She squeezed the pen in her hand hard and heard a crack. Then, she looked at the pen that had broken into two pieces and could not help but smile. Was this the feeling of possessing great power? It was indeed wonderful. No wonder those superpowered people always looked down on them like ants. Even if her ability was not bad, in the hearts of superpowered people, she was probably just a breeding tool. Before entering the laboratory, Tangua asked Yi Min to help her inquire about a person. Ever since she transmigrated, she had not heard any news about Pei Cici. Pei Cici. Do you know her? Yi Min was puzzled. Vertex. Chapter 44-46. Of course, Yi Min knew Pei Cici. Pei Cici had excellent genes and was matched with 5 men of high status. For some reason, none of the 5 men refused to give up. Now, it seemed like they wanted to have Pei Cici together. Pei Cici has registered her marriage with Fu Qiu and the 5 men. They are living together now. She seems to be pregnant, Yi Min said and glanced at Tangua. Are you good friends? Not really. I suddenly remembered that I heard some news before. Tangua said. The original owner and Pei Cici did know each other, but they were not close. After all, they were from the same female cultivation base. However, not long after she transmigrated, she left with Yi Tian and stayed in the laboratory. Of course, she did not have time to pay attention to Pei Cici. I heard that the laboratory made a good breakthrough. Yi Min asked. He still did not know about the fertility fruit and the contraceptive fruit. When I went out with you, I found 2 kinds of fruits. One of them can give women great strength, but they will lose their fertility. Everyone in the laboratory ate it. There were no side effects. Yi Min nodded. Did you eat it too? Yes. Yi Min nodded again. That's good. This way, you can protect yourself and won't be bullied in the future. Yi Min, you don't look like a man in this world, Tangua said directly. Yi Min said, I am different. Let me tell you softly. Actually, I don't like children at all. Why? Tangua also lowered her voice and asked. Yi Min's voice became softer. He even moved closer to Tangua's ear and sniffed her fragrance. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and automatically distanced himself from her. He was afraid that Tangua would misunderstand him as a crazy guy who had no self-control. I repaired a piece of information before. I think there is a sentence in it that is very correct. What? Children are the third party between husband and wife. Tanguy could not help but laugh. But some families of 3 are still very happy. But it can't be reflected in this society. If one side is not equal, there is no so-called happiness. Actually, I don't like children. Maybe it's from the bottom of my heart. I still want to find someone who can love and live with me for the rest of my life. Yimin kept glancing at Tanguy. She was not bad. Yimin, do you want to know the effects of the other fruit? When Yimin heard this, he felt that it was not simple. Tanguy said, there's another kind of fruit that will bring about earth-shaking changes to this world, especially to men. Yimin had a bad feeling. Men will get pregnant and have babies after eating it. Yimin, don't eat the fruits here in the future. If you're not careful, Yimin, he doesn't even have a girlfriend. Even if he ate her, he wouldn't be able to give birth. Besides, even if you want to give birth, you need a girlfriend, right? Tanguy understood what Yimin was hinting at. Yimin was saying that she had eaten the contraceptive fruit. Even if they did something, it seemed that they would not be able to have a baby. Yimin looked at Tanguy with a smug look. That look was really funny. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to move on to the next step of the experiment. Yimin was a little reluctant. How long will it take? I don't know. Maybe the experiment was successful. Tanguy didn't know either. After all, grafting 2 kinds of fruits would cause all kinds of changes. As Tanguy expected, the grafting cultivation of the next 2 kinds of fruits did not go smoothly. There were all kinds of situations in the middle, and it would always lose some of its effects. It did not meet her expectations, and it might even lose all of its effects. Fortunately, there was the growth liquid. Otherwise, it would not be worth spending so much time. The peak. Chapter 44-47. After countless experiments, she finally made some progress. She got a few fruits with 2 effects. Next, she continued to cultivate them, and each time, she got the best seeds. In the end, she got the perfect seeds. At this time, 10 years had passed. In fact, Tanguy even cheated in this experiment. She used a lot of things in her space, including some immortal stones and spirit spring water from Ziyun. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gone so smoothly. What should we call this fruit? Yi Tian's eyes were red. For the past 10 years, they had been thinking about this thing day and night. Finally, they succeeded. Tanguy shook her head. I'm bad at naming things. Sister Yi, come up with one. Yi Tian said, it has 2 colors and is the hope of us women. It's like a rainbow after a storm. Why don't we call it the rainbow fruit? Okay, then let's spread the seeds. When this batch grows, people should know the use of this fruit. It's up to them whether they eat it or not. Tanguy smiled and said, we have a lot of seeds. Even if someone tries to cut us down, we'll just plant them. After all, this world isn't their territory, and not every place is under their control. Spread more seeds in those dangerous places. Of course, Tanguy had secretly asked Ziyun to help cultivate a lot of these seeds. When the time came, she would get some paper puppets and put more of them in those dangerous places. With her, no one would be able to make this fruit extinct. I'll leave the rest to Sister Yi. Yi Tian had to help who would eat this batch of fruits first. Leave it to me. Not long after, a newly discovered fruit called the rainbow fruit appeared. However, it was relatively rare and only the upper class could use it. The few families that Yi Tian chose were all familiar with and had discussed with her. These families naturally knew that they should let the women eat this fruit. These women already had children, so losing the ability to reproduce was not a bad thing for them. In addition, some of the younger and unmarried women could eat it if they wanted to. Their families would not stop them. This was because other than these families, other families with the desire to reproduce still treated women as tools for reproduction. As for the Yi family, Yi Tian and Yi Min were more normal. In addition, it was very common for a mother to give birth to more than a dozen children in a family that didn't care much about fighting for property. Originally, the women in this world had no special abilities and were very weak. After giving birth to more than 10 children in a row, their vitality was greatly damaged and their lifespans were shortened. Many women did not continue to have children because their bodies could not take it, not because the men did not want their wives to have children. The rainbow fruits were all eaten by the women of the families that Yi Tian had chosen. Not long after, news spread that the women who had eaten the rainbow fruits all possessed great power. As soon as this news came out, countless people went crazy, frantically searching for the rainbow fruit. This included those powerful clans that had a strong desire to reproduce. They also hoped that the females in their clans could become stronger so that they could continue to have more children. In their opinion, the strength of the women in their own family would not affect the strength of the women in the world. They could still control it. Of course, their other goal was to see if this rainbow fruit could make a man's superpower stronger. Tang Gua and Yi Tian stood to the side, quietly watching everything unfold. Pei Cici's husbands are also looking for the rainbow fruit at a high price. It seems that they want to give it to Pei Cici. Yi Min brought the latest news to Tang Gua. Tang Gua, don't give it to them. Pei Cici, who doesn't know the truth, will regret it after eating it. You know. Yi Min was a little surprised. Pei Cici has given birth to several children in the past 10 years. Doesn't she want to become stronger? You'll know when you see it. Anyway, don't give it to them first. After the effect is out and they know about it, you can see if they will give it to Pei Cici. Tang Gua paused. If they want to eat it, it's okay. Let them try it first. This small matter shouldn't be difficult for you, right? Yi Min and Yi Tian's expressions became very strange at the same time. If Pei Cici's 5 husbands ate it, but Pei Cici didn't. So, after they got together, who would have children? It was really hard to explain. Until now, Yi Tian felt that this fruit could not be explained by science. Tang Gua sneered in her heart. This was a combination of the magic fruit and the spiritual fruit. Of course, it was something that science could not solve. She and those 5 men were enemies. The kind of enemies that couldn't be discussed. Didn't they like children? Then they should have children and contribute to the continuation of mankind. The top. Chapter 44-48. The Yi siblings listened to Tang Gua's words. They began to plan this matter, striving to make the 5 men only have 5 fruits. They heard that the 5 men treated Pei Cici as their life and treated her very well. The Yi siblings also wanted to see if the fruit was really that good. If they really treated Pei Cici well, they would definitely give the rainbow fruit to Pei Cici first. It would be interesting if they ate the rainbow fruit first after obtaining it. Sister, I think we can sell some rainbow fruits. After all, the market is almost full, Yi Min said. Yi Tian agreed. Okay, let's do it. Pei Cici's husbands get 5 first, Tang Gua interrupted. Yi Tian and Yi Min didn't know why Tang Gua was so persistent, but they didn't object. Under the arrangement of the Yi siblings, each of Pei Cici's 5 husbands got a rainbow fruit. In the Fu family, Fu Qiu looked at the rainbow fruit in the fruit plate. Is this the rainbow fruit that awakened the great power of those women? Yes. Did they have any other reaction after eating it? No. Although the power they got is different from the power they got, it is definitely not weaker than that of superpowered people. Even what? Maybe even stronger. Fu Qiu's face darkened. He picked up the rainbow fruit and went back to his room. At the same time, the same thing was happening in the Liang family, Tong Jia, and the Fan family. Each of the 5 men got a rainbow fruit, but they didn't talk about it, nor did they gather to discuss it. Instead, they ate the rainbow fruit after thinking about it. Even if they were powerful superpowered people, they still wanted to get other powerful abilities. However, no one had any reaction after eating the rainbow fruit, which made Fu Qiu and the others wonder if they had been deceived. However, those women who ate the rainbow fruit did have great power, which couldn't be deceived. Could it be that the rainbow fruits they got were fake? Or maybe they just looked similar? After waiting for a long time, there was still no reaction, so they arranged people to see the reaction of the other families. They found that all the superpowered people in the families who got the rainbow fruit didn't activate great power after eating it. Then, someone suggested that it was because they were paranormals that they couldn't activate their powerful strength. Thus, a family that doted on their daughter decided to give the rainbow fruit to her. However, as soon as she ate it, her daughter was stimulated with a powerful strength that was comparable to that of a paranormal. The families that had obtained the rainbow fruit all planned to try it out. Although they were unwilling, it wasn't a waste. They could only choose a female with a relatively high status in the family to eat. This time, they chose to eat older women who were almost unable to bear children. This was because they believed that once a young woman possessed great power, she would most likely not accept their arrangement. For safety reasons, they gave it to women who were infertile and had weaker bodies. If he could awaken a powerful strength, he might even be able to make use of the waste. As a result, all the women who had eaten the rainbow fruit had awakened great power, and their skin had also become much better looking. This was an outcome that men did not wish to see. Thus, they tacitly concealed this matter and did not announce it to the public. They also discovered that after eating one rainbow fruit, eating another one would no longer have any effect. Vertex. Chapter 44-49. The higher-ups made a decision. They still had to find the rainbow fruit, but they couldn't spread it to the public, especially not to young women. As for who to give it to, it was up to them to decide. As for men, they could eat the rainbow fruit as a fruit, if there were a lot of them. If Tanguin knew about their conversation, she would definitely say a lot. It's true that we can't give it to women. Currently, the tracking watch has no signal from time to time. If those rebels eat the rainbow fruit, they will have great power. Who knows what they will do? We finally have a peaceful world. We can't let those brainless women destroy it. Someone said. Yes, even if we give it to them, we should give it to those women who contribute to fertility. Not everyone wants to eat it. Not long after, a large number of rainbow fruits were found. Some were saplings, and some were mature. At this time, the Yi family also found a lot and announced to the public that they would give it to all the women in the family. Other families who loved their daughters also did the same. Although the higher-ups could prevent ordinary people from eating the rainbow fruit, they couldn't stop these families who also had great power. When the Yi family did the first, other families who loved their daughters also did the second. They all exposed that their families had given the rainbow fruit to women. The only difference was that some families who were on good terms with the Yi family knew that men couldn't eat the rainbow fruit. At present, the effect of the rainbow fruit on men hadn't happened yet. The higher-ups had been concealing the news of the rainbow fruit, but the news still spread. So, another wave of people was set off to find the rainbow fruit. At present, no one could stop it. Most of the people who went to find the rainbow fruit were men. Not all of the paranormals were top-notch, and some were relatively weak. Who wouldn't want to have a chance to become stronger? They didn't want to give the rainbow fruit to the women in the family. Some women also thought about it. They heard that eating the rainbow fruit would give them great power. At present, the matter of the rainbow fruit was not known everywhere. Previously, under the cultivation of Tangua, the rainbow fruit took root and grew up. It didn't take long for it to blossom and bear fruit, only a few months. Now, the batch of seeds that were released before almost all bore rainbow fruit. However, the places where they were released were relatively marginal, so they hadn't been discovered yet. However, there were still some people in small places who ate the rainbow fruit as an ordinary fruit. However, it was still considered rare at the moment. After the apocalypse, fruits were very precious, so for the time being, it was not the women's turn to eat them. Those who ate the rainbow fruit were all men. Pei Sisi had also heard about the rainbow fruit and had mentioned it to Fu Qiu and the others. Fu Qiu, there is indeed such a fruit. Pei Sisi looked expectant. It said that eating this fruit can awaken a woman's superpower. Is that true? If she could have a powerful superpower, of course she would be willing. Fu Qiu nodded. It's true, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on men. I've already arranged for someone to look for it. When they find it, they'll bring it back for you to eat. This time, Fu Qiu was sincere. Since it was useless for him, he could give it to Pei Sisi. In his opinion, even if Pei Sisi had great power, she would still obediently stay by his side. Liang Haolin and the others also had the same idea, so now they were all arranging for people to desperately search for the rainbow fruit. Vertex. Chapter 4450. However, the place where the rainbow fruit grew was too remote. Once a little of it appeared, it would be snatched and eaten by others. After all, the fruit was very precious at this time. Everyone wanted to taste it first. Pei Sisi was looking forward to it. That's great. Then I can have great power and not be afraid of the danger of mutant animals and plants. While they were chatting, Fu Qiu's expression suddenly changed. He sat down at the side, his face paling visibly. Pei Sisi was worried and went to support him. What's wrong with you, Pei Qiu? Are you sick? Can paranormals get sick? Paranormals couldn't get sick. They could only be injured and infected with a very strong virus. Not only Pei Qiu, but Tong Jinjuan's face was also a little pale. He was a big guy, but he suddenly vomited and yelled, "Is there something wrong with the lunch? I actually want to vomit. It must be the food." Pei Qiu still looked pale. "I feel a little nauseous too." "Then it must be the food. What should we do now?" "See a doctor?" Pei Sisi asked. She didn't understand at all. Didn't paranormals get sick? Maybe it was the food that had a big problem. Both of them said that it was nothing. They just needed to rest. The others also thought so. However, in the next few days, the two of them vomited more and more. They couldn't even perform at their best when using their superpowers. Only then did they pay more attention to it. This time, Pei Sisi and the others accompanied the two of them to see a doctor. Pei Sisi was very worried. The doctor decided to give the two of them a comprehensive examination. He didn't know until he did the examination. The doctor was shocked. When he asked about the situation just now, the doctor was a little confused. Why did the two of them seem to have a pregnancy reaction? But he soon dismissed this idea. After all, they were men. How could they have such a strange reaction? On the contrary, after the comprehensive examination, the doctor looked at the two of them and the baby in their belly. His mouth opened so wide that a goose egg could be put in it. The doctor was so scared that he walked out with his hands and feet. He was shocked and scared. Was this the evolution of men? He couldn't help but touch his belly. It was terrible, too terrible. He couldn't accept it at all. Seeing the doctor come out, Pei Sisi hurriedly asked. The doctor looked troubled. After Liang Haolin yelled at him, he finally mustered up the courage to say that the two of them weren't sick. They were just pregnant. Afraid of being beaten, he quickly showed them the scans. Moreover, it had already been 3 months. The fetus had already taken shape. The few of them stared at the film and shook their heads hurriedly. It must have been a mistake. The doctor followed their request and checked again. There was still a baby. The doctor was also very helpless. Although they couldn't accept it, these two men really did have a baby. At the same time, similar things were happening in hospitals all over the country. Many men suddenly started vomiting. At first, he didn't notice it, but later on, he felt that something was amiss and decided to check it out. Then, they found out that she was pregnant. In the end, this news could not be hidden. The news of a man getting pregnant spread like wildfire. Some of the males in the family were also pregnant. This matter had blown up. An emergency meeting was held to discuss what to do. At this moment, Fu Qiu, who was pregnant, and Tong Jinjun were sitting in a huge conference room. The two of them thought that it would be very embarrassing, but later on, they realized that many of the people sitting here were pregnant. They immediately felt a little relieved. For now, we should investigate the cause and confirm whether it's an external effect or a change in the genes of men. The president also had a headache. He touched his stomach. He was also pregnant. Peak. Chapter 44-51. Many men were pregnant. The problem hadn't been found yet, but they couldn't rule out the possibility of genetic problems. Once the news came out, all the men in the world trembled. They didn't want to have children. Men who were afraid of getting pregnant would rather solve their own biological problems than be with women. At least, they couldn't rest assured until the problem was solved. After the apocalypse, the population was low, and the whole world encouraged people to have children. Therefore, there were no condoms at all. They didn't make condoms anymore. Currently, all the research institutes were studying the genetic changes in men. Those who were pregnant couldn't wait to have an abortion. However, there was a law in the world that forbade abortion. Women who were pregnant had to give birth. This was an international law. When Tang Guo heard about it, she laughed like crazy. I heard that Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun are both pregnant. Tang Guo asked. Yimin nodded. Yes, they're both pregnant. They wanted to have an abortion secretly. After all, the law can't restrict them. Why didn't they have an abortion? Pei Sisi cried and begged them. She said that it was their child and they couldn't abort it. No matter what, it's still a little life, Yimin said with a strange expression. Tang Guo laughed. Pei Sisi is right. It's the fruit of their love. How can they abort it? They're legally married. I remember that they like children very much. Why can't they give birth to it themselves? Their genes are so good. Wouldn't it be a pity to abort it? In a few days, they might not be able to abort it even if they want to. Yi Tian smiled and said, Father has already decided to do something about it. In fact, it wasn't a big deal for men to eat the fruit. As long as they wore a condom when doing it, it wouldn't affect them at all. They could control it. Why would Father Yi do such a thing? It was because he had an elder sister who married into another family. She gave birth to one child after another. She was completely used as a reproductive tool. When she gave birth to the last child, she died. Because the doctor determined that this woman might not have the chance to have another child, they decisively decided to abort the child and give up Father Ye's sister's life. Of course, these things were carried out in secret. They announced to the public that Father Ye's sister died of dystocia because of health problems. These were all secretly investigated by the Yi family. The other party's power was not any weaker than the Yi family. If this matter were to spread out, they would not be able to obtain any justice. After getting the rainbow fruit, Father Yi sent a lot of it to that family. At present, more than half of the men in that family were pregnant, which could be considered as helping him vent his anger. What infuriated Father Yi the most was that the child his sister gave birth to was not like the Yi family at all. It was the same as the Yi family, so he had no intention of showing mercy. A few days later, Father Yi took the lead and suggested that all pregnant men should give birth to their children. These male paranormals had good genes, which could be considered as a contribution to the continuation of the human race. If she didn't give birth, how could she check if there were any changes in the male's genes? Hearing this, the eyes of the researchers lit up. That's right, they also had the same idea. Therefore, all the pregnant men were numbered and kept in the warehouse. They had to know their data at all times. Even Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun, who were young and had a high status, couldn't escape. After all, Mr. President also needed to express his stance, so no one could escape. Vertex. Chapter 44-52. At present, there were already many women who had great power. If this matter was not handled well, there would definitely be turmoil. Why are you here? I've been looking for you for a long time. Yi Min came back to tell Tang Guo the good news. He felt that Tang Guo was hostile to Fu Qiu and the others. He did not expect that after looking around, Tang Guo would run to the wall. Just sit here. Let me tell you a piece of good news. What? As you guessed, in order to study the changes in male genes, all pregnant men must be numbered and stored in the warehouse to give birth to the babies they are currently pregnant with. Among them, many men with excellent genes will be specially taken care of. Rather than taking care of, it's more like monitoring, right? Tang Guo sneered. Yi Min was a little strange. I thought you would be very happy and relieved. What's there to be happy about? Tang Guo smiled carelessly. They agreed just to solve the problem of the changes in male genes. Because of this matter, all men in the world are very afraid. Then it may not be solved. Yi Min said, the power of the rainbow fruit can't be explained by science. My sister said that she still doesn't understand the rainbow fruit. Actually, I don't know much either. Yi Min shook his head helplessly. I heard that someone proposed to produce condoms. Aren't you ashamed to discuss this with me in such a serious manner? Yi Min, it's just a piece of news. Your reaction is too big. Besides, if it were the two of us, we wouldn't need these. Neither of us can get pregnant. After Yi Min finished speaking, he looked at Tang Guo with a smile. Don't you think so? Get lost. No. You haven't answered me yet. Yi Min shamelessly jumped onto the wall and sat next to Tang Guo. It's been so many years. There should be some response, right? Now that we don't need to do any experiments, shouldn't our problem be brought up to the surface? There's no need to do experiments, but this world is still in chaos. One person can't change the world's peace, Yi Min said. Yi Min said, life is so long. Even after we get together, you can still do whatever you want, right? If the world regains its former order, Yi Min, what do you want to do? Yi Min thought for a while and said, I want to be a director and shoot all kinds of good TV series. I'm very envious of the people before the apocalypse. They actually had so many TV shows to watch and all kinds of entertainment. However, time can't be reversed. Many things have already changed. We can't return to that time. We can only get closer and closer. There might even be some other changes. Yi Min was a little sad. However, your dream can still come true. Tang Guo stood up and was about to jump down when she passed her hand to Yi Min. Yi Min quickly held it and let her down. It's time for a women's freedom movement. Tang Guo said to cheer Yi Min up. Originally, I had another experiment to study how to restore the fertility of women who ate the rainbow fruit. Tang Guo said, I suddenly felt that it was not necessary. When one made a choice, they would have to give up some things. If some hesitant women want to have a child, they can actually have a child first before deciding whether to eat the rainbow fruit or not. And being the first batch of women to eat the rainbow fruit is already enough for women to stand up. I believe that there are many women who are willing to make this choice. If everything is perfect, everything will be considered for them. It can stimulate a strong power and give birth to offspring. It's too perfect and too easy. The peak. Chapter 44-53. No blood has been shed and no sacrifice has been made. No one knows how difficult it is. They will only think that everything comes too easily and won't cherish it. Strength is important, but what I'm most afraid of is a woman who has great strength but still can't learn how to protect herself. She might even become a knife in the hands of men to exploit herself. Women and men are born different. They are more emotional. If a woman with great strength is moved by a man's feelings and is willing to bear his children, it's normal. But if that man makes her give birth to children one by one in the name of love, I suddenly feel that this is a very scary thing. Yi Min, so, you plan to give up on the last experiment? Yes, give up. Women's rights, peace, and justice have to be sacrificed. It's too easy to get things for free. Yi Min thought for a while and seemed to understand. I feel that you're right. When did you say that I'm not right? Tang Guo pursed her lips and smiled. Xiao Guo, you finally know how I feel. Yes, in my eyes, you're always right. Yi Tian knew about Tang Guo's decision and smiled in relief. Actually, I had this idea a long time ago, but I didn't stop you from doing it. It seems that Sister Yi has already thought of this, Tang Guo said with a smile. Yi Tian, because I believe that you've also thought of this. In the upcoming women's movement, there will definitely be people who will be sacrificed. There is no movement for rights that doesn't involve sacrifice. The seeds that were put out have already bloomed and borne fruit. Sister Yi, do we need to expand our members? Otherwise, when the time comes, I'm afraid that we won't have enough manpower all over the country. Leave this to me. Many of our members are female lecturers. We've already recorded the seedlings we need. When the time comes, we'll find them and ask them for their choice, Yi Tian said. I hope that when the time comes, more positioning watches will malfunction. Over the years, with the help of the system, the positioning watches would often malfunction. It was a headache for the whole world, but there was nothing they could do. All the men who were pregnant before were observed. After research, the genes of those pregnant men did indeed change greatly. This discovery made all the men in the world feel threatened. Currently, the genes of men were being collected in every place. They wanted to see how many men had such changes. Based on the samples collected, it was estimated that 0.1% of the men in the country had such genetic changes. Later on, it was unknown who suggested whether or not they should collect the genes of those women who possessed great power. After collecting, they discovered that there had been a huge change. Furthermore, it was found that these women were infertile. Finally, their suspicious gazes landed on the rainbow fruit. Sure enough, when they asked those pregnant men, all of them had eaten the rainbow fruit before. For a time, the appearance of the rainbow fruit was forbidden all over the world. All saplings with rainbow fruit were destroyed. However, at this time, Yi Tian's women's campaign began all over the country. They took the rainbow fruit and spread the news everywhere, shouting the slogan of freedom: how can we obtain freedom? Only with great power can we women have freedom. This is the cruelty of this world, but it is also the truth. It was obvious that she was going to die of laughter. What she didn't expect was that Pei Sisi also joined in the end to persuade her. Of course, Pei Sisi wasn't the only one. There were other women who had benefited from this world. Pei Sisi mustered up her courage and said, "Actually, there's no point in making such a fuss. Eating that rainbow fruit would cause a woman to lose her ability to conceive. If she couldn't even conceive a child, what was the point? To be, too." Chapter 44-55. In fact, if you want to fight for your rights and interests, you can sit down and have a talk. Don't engage in sports as it will affect peace and security. Pei Sisi continued, "After hundreds of years, the world has finally returned to peace. If it becomes chaotic again, it won't do us any good." Pei Sisi saw that Tang Guo was not angry and did not interrupt. She thought that her words would be listened to. "If you have any needs, you can tell me. I can help you fight for them. We are not unreasonable people. Sit down and have a talk. Everything can be solved." This time, Tang Guo's eyes finally fell on Pei Sisi's face. She had a white and clean face, curved eyebrows, red lips, white teeth, and skin that seemed to be glowing. She was wearing a beautiful and clean dress. From her appearance alone, one could tell that Pei Sisi was indeed living a blissful life. "Miss Pei must be very happy, right?" Tang Guo asked. Pei Sisi froze for a moment. Obviously, she didn't expect Tang Guo to ask this question. However, she felt that she needed to show her happiness to make Tang Guo understand that all the previous women's sports were really destroying other people's happy lives. Because of the sports, her men had not slept for several days. Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun were still pregnant. They were all busy, which made her heart ache. If it were not for the sports, they would be able to take care of their babies. "Miss Pei, do you think that as long as you are happy, everyone in the world will be happy?" Tang Guo asked again. Pei Sisi paused. She did not know how to answer. Did she not know? Of course, she knew some things. After all, these were not secrets. You came to persuade them not for the thousands of happy families in the world, but for yourself. Tang Guo walked in front of Pei Sisi. She was half a head taller than Pei Sisi. In terms of momentum, she suppressed Pei Sisi. Pei Sisi was a little timid, but she was not afraid. "No matter what you did is simply destroying the peace. No, we are just fighting for our rights and interests. You said something wrong before. They are not reasonable people. If they were reasonable people, the status of women today would not be so low. They are like animals in captivity. When it matures, it will be taken away by others." Tang Guo's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Miss Pei, you're just a pig. It's only because you're good-looking that many people like you that you have a happy life. If your genes didn't match with theirs in the beginning, do you think you would still be able to live a good life today? Miss Pei, there aren't thousands of happy families in this world. This is just on the surface. Maintaining such a facade is only because they oppress women. I don't care if Miss Pei wants to continue sleeping, but please don't think that women should be treated like this. Our movement has always been for human rights and freedom, not to oppress anyone." You said you're willing to fight for us. Why? Does Miss Pei no longer consider herself a woman? She's automatically siding with the males. That's right. You have a happy family. You have 5 husbands who dote on you. Your status is not ordinary. How can you suffer like an ordinary woman? Even if you give birth to one child after another, you'll still have the best care so that your body can recover quickly. Vertex. Chapter 44-56. You've taken all the benefits, but you're pretending to be innocent. You're saying that the actions of us women are ruining your happiness. Miss Pei, are you heartless? Miss Pei, as far as I know, you were also sent to the breeding base for women by your parents after you were born, right? Have you ever resented them at the beginning? Have you ever experienced giving birth to one child at a time, doing all the chores at home and not being respected? Do you know how many women in this world are taken away by their so-called husbands after they've been matched? Not only do they have to give birth to their husband's children, but their husbands may also ask them to give birth to other people's children and use their children to buy money. You definitely don't know because you're living too blissfully and have always been protected. Do you know why the lifespan of women in this world is getting shorter and shorter? There are countless women who die in their 40s. This is because they only have one mission when they're alive, which is to give birth to children continuously. They're just tools for reproduction. If you haven't experienced this, what right do you have to ask us to stop our activities and fight for our rights? You're really high and mighty and you're giving orders and talking nonsense. Miss Pei, if you can experience what these women have gone through and say what you've said today, then I can consider your advice. Tangua's voice slowed down as she stared coldly at the pale Pei Cici. If you dare to experience these things once, I'll admire you and your negotiation will be successful. What do you think? Do you dare? If you don't dare, then get lost. Shut up and don't talk nonsense. Stay in your home with 5 men. Tangua sneered. What right do you have to say this? You're a person who stepped on the blood of countless women and took the benefits. You're hypocritical, disgusting, and selfish. Look at yourself in the mirror and see how disgusting you are. With every word Tangua said, Pei Cici's face turned paler. She couldn't help but take a step back and her eyes turned red. Do you feel wronged? How is this considered wronged? You're just being scolded. What's there to feel wronged about? This is a male-dominated society. You can't fight against it. Pei Cici finally said, why do you have to do these meaningless exercises? You'll lose your life when the time comes. Tangua stopped smiling. The difference between humans and animals is that when humans are oppressed, abused, and restrained, they will know how to resist. But animals are different. Animals can only be tamed and used to. Miss Tang, Miss Pei, to us, we would rather lose our lives to resist. If we don't resist today and tomorrow, we will only be oppressed forever. If everyone thinks the way you do, then women will never be able to stand up. Miss Pei, we're not afraid of death. Chapter 44-57. Miss Pei, you can only write for yourself. You can't represent everyone. You're happy, but they might not be. Pei Cici was speechless, even though she had a lot to say. But these words were undoubtedly a joke in front of Tangua. She was the one who applied for the negotiation this time. Because she saw that her men were so happy, especially when they were pregnant and busy with those things. Her heart ached for them, so she wanted to do something for them. She thought that if she persuaded Miss Tang seriously, she would definitely understand. However, that was not the case. She was humiliated, but she could not refute. Miss Tang, sorry to disturb you. Pei Cici was unwilling to admit her mistake. No matter what, I feel that it's not desirable to gain great power at the cost of losing the ability to reproduce. You said it yourself. This is what you think. Miss Pei, does your family live in the sea? You're so nosy. There are thousands of kinds of people. Why do you think that we think that fertility is more important than dignity? Tanghua had never thought of persuading Pei Sisi to wake up. She only wanted to use this opportunity to scold her. Pei Sisi still didn't feel that she was wrong. She left gloomily. After that, another person came to negotiate with Tanghua. Of course, they all failed. The women's movement in the country continued. It gradually moved from small places to larger cities. Regardless of whether women who voluntarily gave up their fertility to gain great power joined. This made the women's movement become more and more intense. Almost no one could stop it. In Tanghua and Yi Tian's plan, they would bring countless rainbow fruits with them every time they arrived at a city. Tanghua had mixed in a lot of paper puppets. The system had already helped her collect the family situation in each city. When they arrived at a city, they would go straight to find those women who had been oppressed and were in despair. And some young girls who were currently receiving education in the women's cultivation base. These young girls who were willing to resist could be considered one of the main forces of the women's movement this time. In the beginning, many oppressed women were still afraid of failure, so they didn't dare to do so. Later on, when they saw that the matter was getting bigger and bigger, and more people were coming, they also joined in. This was especially true for those women who had given birth to one child after another. Their bodies were almost depleted, and they didn't have many years left to live. Moreover, they weren't respected by their families. They joined without looking back. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well die like this. At least he could breathe a sigh of relief before he died. This was a women's movement that could no longer be stopped. The GPS wristwatch had completely lost its signal. If there was anything, the system would help to block the communication signal. The president and the others were in a terrible fix, but there was nothing they could do. They arranged for some paranormals to stop them, but they found something terrible. These powerful women were something that paranormals couldn't do anything to. Due to the emergence of superpowers, the world had just recovered. Many countries were still researching the evolution of superpowers, and weapons had yet to receive much attention. Therefore, to deal with this group of powerful women, it was better to use superpowered people than to use weapons. Someone suggested that they should attack them one by one and find the person in charge. Then, they could promise good conditions. As long as they were satisfied, the other party would end all of this. Thus, he could even lower the morale of these women. Vertex. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.